Hello, you're watching Shalom World News. I'm Donna Villa from Chicago, USA. Here are the latest headlines from around the world. A new report on the pro-abortion group has shown that legal abortions dipped by more than 10,000 or nearly 6% throughout the U.S. after Roe v. Wade was overturned. According to At We Count, abortions declined almost to zero in states with bans on the termination of pregnancy. However, they increased in many states where abortion remained legal. Society of Family Planning's We Count initiative reported that there were 5,270 fewer abortions in July and 5,400 fewer in August after the court's June 24 Dobbs ruling. We Count also identified some of the states with the largest increase in abortions, such as North Carolina with 37%, Kansas with 36%, Colorado with 33%, and Illinois with 28%. On average, there were 22,000 fewer abortions in states with bans and limitations in July and August compared to the pre-decision baseline month of April. Pope Francis invited everyone to pray for the millions of children who are suffering around the world, especially those who are homeless, orphans, and victims of war. An abandoned child is our fault, the Holy Father said in the video prepared by the Pope's Worldwide Prayer Network announcing his prayer intention. There are still millions of boys and girls who suffer and live in conditions very similar to slavery, the Pope said. He stressed that these children are not mere numbers, but humans with names and an identity that God has given them. Every marginalized child living without schooling, without a family, without health care is a cry that rises up to God and shames the system that we adults have built, said the pontiff. According to UNICEF, 1 billion children currently live in multidimensional poverty, that is, without basic access to education, health care, shelter, food, sanitation, or water. The agency also estimates that 153 million children are orphans. Ahead of the Pope's visit to Bahrain from November 3rd through the 6th, Vatican Secretary of State Cardinal Pietro Parolin expressed his gratitude to the King, Bahraini authorities, and the Church on the island for the preparations being made. In an interview with L'Osservatore Romano and Vatican News, the Cardinal stated that it would characterize by tensions, oppositions, and conflicts in the world, and the Pope's visit and the events in Bahrain are messages of unity, cohesion, and peace. He said the message that the Holy Father wants to communicate is an invitation to dialogue, an invitation to an encounter between the East and the West. He said that it is essential since Bahrain is a multi-ethnic, multicultural, and multi-religious reality. Nigerian Bishop Jude Arogundade has backed the campaign launched by the British branch of Aid to the Church in Need for helping persecuted believers. He called on the UK government to press their Nigerian counterparts to step up efforts to bring justice to those responsible for the killing of over 7,600 Christians in just 18 months. In an interview with ACN last week, the bishop said genocide is currently taking place. He added that there was a concerted effort to drive Christians out of their lands by various means such as abductions and mass killings. Bishop Jude said land belonging to Christians is being forcibly taken from them and churches are attacked while the service is going on. The petition that ACN UK is doing is very helpful, he said. The bishop added that the world will become more aware of what is going on in Nigeria. In a letter mailed to all registered parishioners in the U.S. Archdiocese of Detroit, Archbishop Ellen Vigneron has pleaded with Catholics to reject an extreme ballot proposal on abortion stated for Michigan's November 8 election. The letter, which was mailed to hundreds of thousands of Catholic households, began arriving in mailboxes in the last week of October. The Archbishop said that Proposal 3, also known as the Reproductive Freedom for All constitutional amendment, would have vast and extreme consequences for Michigan if it passes. He said it would turn the state into ground zero for abortion extremism. The danger of Proposal 3, the Archbishop and others said, is that its intentionally vague language would invalidate all other laws in the state that regulate abortion. Iran has announced it will hold public trials for 1,000 people in the capital, Tehran, over the anti-regime protests that have engulfed the country. The mass indictments mark the government's first major legal action aimed at quashing dissent since the unrest erupted over 6 weeks ago. State-run IRNA news agency quoted judicial officials as saying that 1,000 protesters would be brought to trial in Tehran alone over their subversive actions, including assaulting security guards and setting fire to public property, among others. The protesters are people from all walks of life, including students and women who protested over the death of 22-year-old Mahsa Amini in police custody after she was arrested for inappropriate use of the hijab. Decrying the state of religious freedom in various Latin American countries, the Alliance Defending Freedom, a faith-based legal advocacy group, has urged the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights to defend religious freedom in Nicaragua and Mexico. Thomas Henriquez, the head of the ADF for Latin America during the Commission's hearing, said that a spike in violations of human rights in the field of religious freedom is now occurring in those countries. The Missionaries of Charity of St. Teresa of Calcutta and the Religious of the Cross of the Sacred Heart of Jesus were forcibly removed from Nicaragua by President Daniel Ortega's administration. More than a dozen Catholic priests have been subjected to harassment by the administration, and many others, like Bishop Rolando Alvarez of Matagalpa, were detained. Henriquez also brought up the violations of religious freedom experienced by the church in Mexico, where it has been unlawful for clerics to discuss politics publicly for more than a century. The President of Portugal, Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa, has registered as a pilgrim for the World Youth Day, or WYD, which will be held in the capital Lisbon from August 1st through the 6th next year. According to the President, the event will be the largest collective meeting ever in Portugal. He also invited all Catholics to this international event. Registration for WYD Lisbon 2023 is now open for pilgrims, volunteers, priests, bishops through the official registration platform. Registration forms are available in 5 languages, namely Portuguese, English, Italian, French, and Spanish. Instructions will also be available for download on the registration platform. A pro-life event will take place in Belfast in Northern Ireland on November 5th to mark the 3rd anniversary of abortion being forced on the nation. It will also commemorate the 4,136 babies killed by abortion. This is to send a clear message to politicians to stop abortion-related violence. The event is organized by Precious Life, Northern Ireland's leading pro-life organization. Abortion was liberalized in Northern Ireland by Westminster in 2019. The abortion law was passed at a time when Northern Ireland was without a functioning assembly. More than 4,000 babies were murdered following the liberalization of abortion. Hundreds of pro-lifers are expected to attend the event. Condemning the unjustified violence against peaceful protesters, the Catholic bishops of Chad have appealed for peace. Following the harsh crackdown on the demonstrations on October 20, the Bishops' Conference of Chad has released a statement expressing regret and outrage at the unjustified violence against peaceful protesters. A large crowd of protesters gathered to voice their opposition against the country's interim leader, Mohamed Idris Deby Itno, who extended his power for another 2 years. At least 50 people were killed in the police action. The military-run Central African nation has been in turmoil since the unexpected death of President Idris Deby in 2021. Mohammed Itno then announced that he would assume the role of head of state for a transition period of 18 months after suspending the operation of Chadian government institutions. The civilians gathered to oppose the extension of the transitional military government led by him, calling for a democratic government. Hundreds of thousands of Bangladeshi Christians flocked to a popular Marian shrine in the Muslim-majority country on October 28. Almost 30,000 believers attended the annual pilgrimage to the shrine of Barumari in Sherpur district in the north. They took part in the vigil, comprising Eucharistic adoration, the recitation of the Rosary, and a procession during which they prayed for peace and harmony. The feast concluded with a solemn mass presided over by Father Gabriel Correa, Vicar General of the Dhaka Archdiocese. Many of the believers took part in the pilgrimage as a sign of thanksgiving for favors received and for the protection during the pandemic. As the two-week-long General Conference of the Federation of Asian Bishops Conference, or the FABC, came to an end on Sunday, the prelates were reminded to listen to the cries of those in the peripheries. In the final message, the Asian bishops from the 17 Episcopal Conferences of Asia and the synods of the Syro-Malabar and Syro-Malankara churches said that they had been challenged by the voice from the multifaceted continent who are crying out for help and justice. This included cries of the poor and the marginalized, the sufferings of refugees, the dream of deprived youth, and the voices of women asking for a more inclusive church, and the groaning of nature. The conference also mentioned new pathways for ministry built on genuine listening and genuine discernment. And those are your latest headlines. Do join us tomorrow. In the meantime, you can visit swnews.org for more updates. Shalom.